Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT-06, and BT-06 adds a lot of new and powerful cards to build and update some current and existing decks, and one of the decks that I'm going to be talking about and updating today is going to be the Plutomon deck. So Plutomon was a kind of well slept on card. He seemed really underrated when he initially came out just because there wasn't a lot for him to do, and now that we have more cards in the card pool for him to draw from, there's just a lot that you could do with this card and a lot of different setups and ways to support him the best you possibly can. And with BT-06, one of the big things that we got added into the card pool versus Japan is going to be the new Wizardmon, and this is a very important card for how Plutomon wants to work, so that way you could efficiently evolve into Plutomon and not end up passing the turn, which is really important because Plutomon has lots of different options to be interacting with to play him in various different ways. And just as a quick reminder, I am going to be hosting a Win a Playmat event on October 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so feel free to hop into my Discord and register for the event through Limitless Games and play on my Discord channel. Links to those will be in the description below. So without further ado, on to the deck profile. First off, starting with the Digitamas, I'm going to be running one copy of DemiMeramon. So DemiMeramon is still just one of the better, if not one of the best Digitamas that we have to be working with, just because it has this nice on-delete ability where we get to draw one card and then discard one card from our hand. So this is pretty decent just because it helps us set up our trash, dig through our deck, and it's just a decent reward for when our Digimon gets deleted, so at least we get some benefit out of it. But the main Digitama is going to be 4 copies of Tsunomon. So Tsunomon is just a really solid Digitama to be using overall. I think it's a little bit better than DemiMeramon, especially for this deck, based on how this deck wants to perform and what you want to be doing with this deck. So Tsunomon is pretty good because it has a very similar style ability to DemiMeramon, where it's essentially acting as a good draw engine, but the big difference is this ability activates during your turn once per turn when you discard a card from your hand due to your card effects to draw one card. So that's the big difference between the two. DemiMeramon's is on delete, and Tsunomon is just when you're going to be discarding a card, you're just going to be drawing a card back, replacing basically whatever you just discarded. So these are both just very powerful Digitamas to just help with the overall consistency of the deck. Next, onto the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Candlemon. So Candlemon is just a very decent Digimon to be using because it's, well, just a very efficient Digimon to be playing. So it has a low play cost, low evo cost, and decent DP, just making him very good all around. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Gazimon. So Gazimon is a really powerful Digimon to be running in this format because he has this nice powerful ability where during all turns, your opponent can't gain memory except by tamer effects. So with each color getting a memory boost and various ways that they had already to just manipulate the memory, Gazimon turning all of that off is just very important, so that way you could limit what the opponent can do with some of their cards, forcing them to respond to this card. Otherwise, a lot of their cards end up being useless, and that's just really strong. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Labramon. So Labramon is another really decent card to help us discard cards and draw cards because of its on-play ability of drawing a card and then discarding a card. So it helps us set up our hand while fill up our trash, so that way we can have as powerful and efficient of combo play as we possibly can, on top of the fact that this card does synergize with Tsunomon, where if we have Tsunomon underneath a Digimon out, then we're going to be essentially drawing 2 cards with Labramon and discarding 1, and that's just, well, really good. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Gabumon. So this is the starter deck version of Gabumon, and this Gabumon is really good because it has this nice when attacking ability of allowing us to draw 1 card and then discard 1 card. So it's just acting as another form of drawing and discarding, so that way we could set up our hand, fill up our trash, and trigger a lot of our various abilities. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Ginkakumon Promote. So Ginkakumon Promote is a pretty decent card because there's lots of different ways to use him. We're going to be ignoring most of that, and we're only going to be using him for the fact that he has the rush ability. So we're not going to be hard playing him. We're going to try not to Evo into him. We're just going to try to use him as one of the primary cards to discard off of all of our discard abilities, so that way we could res him out of the trash to use for his rush ability to apply extra aggression and pressure onto the opponent, and that's the only reason why we're running Ginkakumon Promote. Otherwise, this could be whatever other champion you feel like you want to be using. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Wizardmon. So Wizardmon is a very powerful Digimon for this deck to be running because, well, it's making Plutomon even more playable than he was before. So what this card is doing is he has the nice inheritable ability where during your turn, once per turn, when you use an option card, you gain 1 memory. So gaining that 1 memory is very good because it's what's making not only just our options more efficient to play as a whole, which options had a very hard time being played before just because they weren't necessarily the most efficient cards to be playing compared to Digimon and Tamers. So the fact that we have a way to make them more efficient is nice, on top of the fact that it does synergize in combo with Plutomon, so that way you could actually utilize that Plutomon without passing the turn. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Devimon. So this is just the deck's dedicated blocker slot. It doesn't necessarily have to be Devimon. It could be a split up combination between Devimon or Vilemon, or if you really wanted to, it could just straight up be Vilemon, just because the difference in the stats could matter. But I prefer using Devimon just because he's still a blocker, he evos for 1, allowing us to be really tempo efficient, even though there is a lot of removal for Digimon with 5000 DP or below. We don't necessarily care because we're purple and we have ways to revive our Digimon, so we just like the fact that this is a blocker for the deck. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 4 copies of LadyDevimon. So LadyDevimon is a really important ultimate for the deck just because of all of her synergy she has with the deck. So she has 2 abilities, 1 native to her, 1 inheritable. The ability native to her is a when digivolving ability, we get to draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards from our hand. So this is very, very strong because it's just a lot of card draw that we're seeing all at once. So with her when digivolving ability, we're going to be gaining the Digivolution bonus. So we're actually drawing 3 cards instead of 2, like the ability says. And then we're going to be discarding 2, which means it combos with Tsunomon, allowing us to draw an additional card just because we discarded. So essentially off of digivolving into LadyDevimon on the field, we could be drawing 3 to 4 cards while discarding 2, and that's just a lot of cards we're seeing and a decent amount of setup we could be using to just get some various abilities off or just have cards sit in our trash ready to use for when we need them. And then on top of all of that, she even has a nice inheritable ability where during your turn, once per turn, when you use an option card, you get to delete one of the opponent's level 3 Digimon. So she's even adding some extra control elements into the deck for us literally doing what the deck wants to be doing, which is just digivolving all the way up into Plutomon to use Plutomon's ability to allow him to play an option for free, thus triggering our Wizardmon and our LadyDevimon in our stack, allowing us to gain 1 memory off of Wizardmon and delete one of the opponent's level 3 Digimon. So it's just a very powerful card to be playing for the deck because of all of those natural synergies. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 4 copies of SkullGreymon. So SkullGreymon is a pretty good Digimon to be using for the deck. This is kind of a flex spot, so if you don't want to use SkullGreymon, you don't have to, but he is really nice because he has 3 abilities to him. The first ability is when he is discarded from our hand, then we get to place him underneath one of our purple Digimon in their Digivolution sources. So this is really good because he is acting as a good reward for discarding. So if he is one of the cards that we discarded, then we get to put him underneath one of our Digimon to use for his inheritable ability, and his inheritable ability is Retaliation. So Retaliation is just a very obnoxious ability for the opponent to be dealing with, just because it's acting as some really decent removal on a Digimon body. So what this ability states is when this Digimon is deleted after losing a battle, then the Digimon deletes the Digimon it was battling with. So you could use this to kamikaze some of your small dudes into the opponent's big Digimon, or you could use this on your higher levels just to make your higher levels that much more annoying to deal with and get rid of, because then if the opponent has a Digimon to actually attack into them and get rid of them, then they're going to lose their big Digimon also. So Retaliation is just a pretty decent ability overall. And then the last ability that SkullGreymon has is when attacking, you get to trash 1 card from your hand to have this Digimon gain plus 3000 DP, which is pretty okay. Swinging with a level 5 that has 10,000 DP isn't the worst thing in the world. It's a pretty safe swing, on top of which the discard also could trigger some of our synergies like Tsunomon, so that way we have consistent ways of trying to draw our cards, and we're not really losing any cards for discarding cards. Next, on to the Megas, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Plutomon. So Plutomon is the main Mega of the deck, and Plutomon is really, really powerful in his own right, and now that we have Wizardmon to shore up the weakness where he did Evo for 4, which meant we would have passed the turn over to the opponent more often than not, means that we can now Evo him for essentially 3, because Wizardmon will gain us the memory back because of his when Digivolving ability, allowing us to draw 2 cards and then play a purple option card with a memory cost of 6 or less for free. So the whole idea is we're going to Digivolve into Plutomon, and then Plutomon's going to allow us to draw off of the Digivolution bonus, then 2 off of his ability. So we're going to be seeing 3 cards off of Plutomon's evolution, and then we get to hopefully use a purple option card from our hand, triggering LadyDevimon and Wizardmon's abilities to delete one of the opponent's level 3 and gain a memory back. So that way we actually evoed him for 3 instead of 4, and used a purple option card, and we have some very powerful purple option cards to use it to just create lots of combo play with Plutomon. So Plutomon, because of that, is looking to be very, very strong and has lots of combo potential, all depending on your option lineup and how you want to best support that option lineup. And then as far as the sub-mega or supporting mega for the deck, I'm going to be using 2 copies of Titamon. It doesn't necessarily have to be Titamon. This is another flex spot. It could be whatever other mega you feel like best supports the deck based on the option lineup and themes that you're going to be playing around with, because there is just that level of flexibility to him. But for this current build, Titamon feels really, really natural because we're already playing around with some discard synergies, and Titamon is just feeding off of that. So Titamon has his own when Digivolving ability, where you get to trash out 1 card from your hand to play 1 purple level 4 or lower Digimon from your trash for free. So just being able to play your Digimon out from your trash is really good. And then on top of that, he has a really nice secondary ability where during your turn, once per turn, when you trash a card from your hand using one of your abilities, then this Digimon gains plus 2000 DP and security attack plus 1 for the turn. So that's just really, really strong because he's acting as some really good damage output for the deck, allowing us to actually have some solid other cards to use to try to aggress and to close out the game with, more than just what Plutomon can offer. And then the last Digimon of the deck is going to be the only level 7 of the deck, and that's going to be 2 copies of Omnimon Zwart. So this is another flex spot. It could really be whatever level 7 you want it to be. If you want it to be Millenniumon, that's fine. If you want it to be Zwart Defeat, that's also fine. It doesn't necessarily matter. Just having a solid level 7 to use it, just to add some extra oomph to the deck, is just strong in itself. I'm choosing to use Omnimon Zwart just because his when Digivolving ability is really powerful, where we get to trash the top 3 cards of our deck. Then we get to play up to 2 black or purple Digimon with a play cost of 8 or less from our trash without paying their memory. So that's just really, really powerful because spawning 2 level 5 bodies means we could go into another level 6 the following turn, and we could use our level 5s in some very powerful ways. So it's just a very strong ability that could create a very wide board presence out of nowhere. And then on top of that, he has a nice when attacking ability that's acting as some removal, where you get to return a level 6 Digimon from his inheritable source to your hand to delete one of the opponent's unsuspended Digimon with a play cost of 12 or less. So this is just a pretty decent card at just trying to remove something off the field, and having some removal is better than having no removal, even if the conditions make it limited on what he could delete. Next, onto the options, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Hell's Gate. So Hell's Gate is going to be the big removal option card because it has this nice main ability where we get to delete one of the opponent's level 6 or higher Digimon. So Purple before had a hard time deleting the opponent's level 6 or higher Digimon, and we have Hell's Gate to shore up that weakness that we also can play for free off of Plutomon because it does have a play cost of 6. And then it also has a nice security ability to add itself into our hand, so that way we could use whenever we feel like we need to, and we'll always have an option in hand with this ability to ensure that we can have an option to use for Plutomon's ability. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Underworld's Call. So Underworld's Call is another really decent option to be using for the deck because it also is a card we want to consider discarding with all of our discard synergy, because it has the nice ability where when this card is trashed from our hand due to one of our card effects, then we get to draw 1 card. So just for ditching this card due to any of our discard effects, it's replacing itself, which is pretty good. And on top of that, it also has the nice main ability to play one of our purple level 4 or lower Digimon from our trash for free. We do get its on-play ability, so keep that in mind. And we could use this for free off of Plutomon, so that way we could Digivolve all the way up into Plutomon, use this ability to use Underworld Call to spawn another Digimon on the field, and the best Digimon to use with this ability is going to be Ginkakumon Promote, so that way we could have a card with Rush to add some extra aggression onto the field out of nowhere, because this is a good option in combination with Plutomon. And then it also has the nice security ability of activating its main effect, so when it's checked in the security, we still get a Digimon out of our trash for free, which ideally would be a blocker to act as some solid defense, or we could use it to bring out Wizardmon to try to help set up another evolution chain. So this is just another very high synergy card for the deck to be using. And then the last option card of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Purple Memory Boost. So Purple Memory Boost is another really strong card for the deck. It could be used for free off of Plutomon, and it has the nice main ability where we get a look at the top 4 cards, add 1 purple Digimon among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So it's just acting as some more consistency on top of the fact that it has a main ability of delay. So instead of this card going to the trash, it goes into the battle area for us to use for its delay ability to gain 2 memory at a later turn. So that's just really strong because it could help set up some very powerful combo play while acting as a really good consistency tool. And then the last card of the deck is going to be the only tamer of the deck, and that's going to be 2 copies of Matt Ishida. So the purple Matt Ishida from BT-02 is still just a very decent tamer to be using because he is going to be acting as our memory fixing tamer. So if our memory is ever less than 3, he's just going to always hard set it to 3, making our plays as efficient as they possibly can be. And on top of that, he also has a nice on-play ability where we get to return one of our purple Digimon or purple option cards from our trash to our hand. We mostly want to use this to grab back our option cards just because we don't have a whole lot of them, and we do want to reuse some of them, so having the availability to grab them back on top of if we really need to grab a Digimon back, then we have that line of play available to us as well, all thanks to Matt Ishida. And then there's just a whole bunch of ways to customize the deck based on what you want to be playing and what you want to be gaining out of the deck, and how you want to best support your options to help the deck function and flow as a whole, with various other Digimon to help support those options of choice. So you could continue with the whole supporting the discard sub-theme by playing Gabumon to give your Digimon plus 2000 DP when you discard a card. And then you also have Ginkakumon and Ginkakumon to play just because we are already playing Promote. So there's no real reason not to consider these cards just because they support Promote and they support the whole discarding sub-theme. Ginkakumon lets us delete level 3 Digimon for discarding a card, and Ginkakumon allows us to gain a memory whenever we discard a card once per turn. So they have some pretty good synergy there, and on top of that we also have Ogremon to consider running as just some more removal that we could use in various different ways, just because for discarding a card using his on-play ability, we get to delete an opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, which could be pretty decent. And then on top of all of that, we even have Cerberusmon and Cerberusmon Werewolf mode to think about, just because we could play this like insane combo deck where we could try to set up some very powerful lines of play using Cerberusmon to just help us draw cards and discard cards with his on delete ability, and we could use that to help set up Werewolf mode, just because Werewolf mode lets us have Rush, and his on-play ability deletes a Cerberusmon to gain 9 memory, so that's just a lot of memory to work with, on top of the fact that we have multiple ways of playing both of those Digimon is just very, very strong. And we even have Black War Greymon if we really want to try to line up some extra aggression. Then we do have just a whole bunch of other really decent level 6s to consider playing. So we could consider playing Mastimon because Mastimon can res Ginkakumon Promote, and then we could use Ginkakumon's Promote's on play ability to just gain the memory if we're playing Ginkaku and Ginkaku, not passing the turn for Digivolving into Mastimon, while gaining a Digimon with Rush and various other abilities on board. So that could be pretty powerful there. Then we also have Lilithmon to just try to reuse our options and make our options even more efficient, just because her in combination with Wizardmon means that our first option of the turn, we're going to be gaining 3 memory, which just makes our options even easier to play, so it's actually really, really good with the deck, and it's not super hard to set up because of all of the discard synergy that we have to have 10 or more cards in our trash to put our options back into our hand. Then we even have Chaos Gallantmon to consider playing, just because we could lean a little bit heavier into some of the self-sacrificing stuff that Chaos Gallantmon was playing around with before, and we do have some other very powerful level 3 Digimon like Electmon that are added into BT-06 to make this type of play even stronger. Then, as I mentioned before, any other level 7 you want, so Zwart and Millenniumon are just 2 very strong level 7s you could consider running for the deck if you don't feel like you want to run Zwart. And then on top of that, you also could run kind of like a Zwart's Turbo style of deck, where you could consider using a White Tamer, and you could line up a Mega Digimon Fusion, so that way you could create a very powerful combo turn that way if you so feel like it. Then we do have some other really powerful option cards to consider running that cost 6 or less that could synergize with the deck depending on how you build it. So you could consider running Necrophobia to res a level 5, and there's no better level 5 to res than Cerberusmon Werewolf Mode. So if you are playing a Werewolf Mode combo deck, then Necrophobia is just a very good card to help support that. And then on top of that, we also have Revive from Darkness to act as another card to try to revive our Werewolf Mode and our Cerberusmons. So that could be another good card to use for that type of combo play there. And then on top of that, we also do just have some other good removal cards in the form of Earthshaker to just try to delete multiple different targets. And we could use it for free off of Plutomon because it does have a play cost of 6. So you could even go a more control-heavy direction if you wanted to with the deck. And then, as I mentioned before, there's just a couple of different tamers you could consider running. So Sora and Mimi is a really good duo tamer that has a very easy ability to allow us to gain 2 memory generically, and these would stack if you have multiple on the field, and it's a decent way of drawing and discarding cards for just swinging with our Digimon. So this is just another really good duo tamer. You could run Mimi from BT-03 because she's a cheap tamer to play that allows us to gain a memory back for playing an option card. You could consider using Takumi as a white tamer just because he helps us draw cards for Digivolving. So you could draw even more cards off of Takumi. You could use Moena because she's a white memory fixing tamer. You care about nothing else but the fact that she's a memory fixing tamer in white. So you could use her to line up a Mega Digimon Fusion play even easier that way. And then you could also consider running Matt and Tai just because it's a duo tamer in white with another really easy ability to get, and it helps support our Omnimons. So there's just a lot of different tamers that you could run in the deck, and there's just a lot of different ways that you could build the deck, all depending on what you want to be supporting and the different types of combo play you want to be playing around with and using. So if you want a quick example of a completely different way to build Plutomon that supports various other tech and tools, then here's another option that you could build, and this is a more combo-centric or combo-heavy build. So the whole deck is dedicated to basically acting like Lilith Loop, but with extra steps, but those extra steps and different cards could add some extra power to what Lilithmon was lacking before. So the whole idea is we're going to start our turn with 3 memory, thanks to Moena being a white memory fixing tamer, and then we don't necessarily care about any of our inheritable sources underneath our Plutomon, but Wizardmon, so that way we don't pass the turn when we Digivolve into Plutomon using an option off of his ability. So the whole combo is going to be this, where we're going to Digivolve into Plutomon, draw 2 cards off of Plutomon, and use an option, gaining the 1 memory from Wizardmon, so that way we don't pass the turn. And then the option card we're going to want to play off of Plutomon is going to be Necrophobia to res a level 5 Digimon, and the level 5 Digimon we're going to be resing is going to be Cerberusmon Werewolf Mode, so that way we could attack with Cerberusmon Werewolf Mode because our turn didn't pass, because we're at 0 memory thanks to Plutomon using the option to gain a memory back with Wizardmon being at 0 memory. Then from there, while we're at 0 memory, we use a Digimon Fusion to go into Omnimon Zwart, so that way we could use Omnimon Zwart's ability to res a couple of Cerberusmons, so that way we could line up a play where we could then, if we have a Cerberusmon Werewolf Mode in hand, because we drew so much, then we could delete one of the Cerberusmons on our field that we rezzed off of our Zwart to just gain 9 memory and have a second swing with a different Cerberusmon, Werewolf mode. Then on top of that, we could use Zwart Defeat's ability to swing, get a third attack in for the turn, adding the Plutomon back into our hand, potentially deleting one of the opponent's Digimon in the process, and then we use the Plutomon to Digivolve on top of Cerberusmon or any of our suspended werewolf modes, so that way we could then use Plutomon's ability to just play another option card while being at 9 memory, and we're not going to pass the turn because we're at 9 memory off of the werewolf mode on playability. So the option we would want to then play as a result is going to be Revive from Darkness to delete a werewolf mode to bring back the same werewolf mode. So that way you could then use that werewolf mode again to swing into the opponent, or you could even delete and bring back a Cerberusmon to bring back a werewolf mode. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's just the fact that we're using it again to just revive another Digimon and try to get an extra attack in with Cerberusmon werewolf mode. And then after all of that, we're still left with 5 memory to do whatever we want with for the rest of our turn to make even more powerful combo plays happen. So that goes to show you that there's just a lot of different things that you could do with the deck depending on how you want to support the deck and the types of tech and tools you're going to be including. But I do think Plutomon has a lot of very good playability and viability in BT-06, all thanks to Wizardmon. So I do really like what Plutomon is doing as a whole, and I think he's going to be a really fun Digimon to be playing around with for BT-06. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.